Hello and welcome to the Minutes to Win It podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. We're talking about some players at each position for tonight's, I won't say small slate, but smaller slate, just 6 games. Some guys who maybe the box scores may be misleading due to some blowouts, things like that, some projected minutes. So we're going to run through some plays here. Starting off with Steph Curry. Obviously, the average fan, the casual fan, is going to look at game logs and just see minutes and see 36 and 27. Obviously, last night was a blowout, only 27 minutes. So, yes, it is a back-to-back, but we still have him projected at 32 minutes for tonight. And despite the fact that this game was kind of a blowout in the first matchup, it's already a rematch of a game that was on, I believe it was Tuesday night. This game's supposed to be more competitive, obviously, being in New Orleans, just a 5-point spread, 212.5-point total. And, I mean, Steph Curry right now just averaging almost 2 fantasy points per minute. So Steph Curry, if he's not the top play, then he's very, very close to it. And I wouldn't be surprised that 32 minutes seems about right. But if this game's close, you could easily see him going 36, 37. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And there is a note that Klay Thompson could be questionable tonight.
Yeah.
If that's the case on the back-to-back, and it's against New Orleans, they may not risk it this early in the season. Curry would probably get another big bump from me, not minutes-wise, but his usage will just grow even higher than it already is at.
Yeah, and I mean, Klay Thompson really hasn't played huge minutes in either of the first two games either. So I'm with you there. Definitely a higher usage rate. Steph Curry at 31.3 so far, usage rate-wise, in the early going. So Klay Thompson, first 2 games, has only played 50 total minutes. Like you said, he's questionable for tonight with some back stiffness. So I'm not going to say I'm predicting a late scratch, but certainly don't be too surprised because I tend to think that Steph Curry against that backcourt can make up for some absence of Klay Thompson just in case.
Yeah, only a 7:30 game, so hopefully we can get that news in.
Yeah, definitely nice that it's not a West Coast game tonight. Elsewhere, at point guard, George Hill coming in at $6,500 on FanDuel. This is a guy that's locked into huge minutes, 38 and 39 in his first 2 games so far this season. And, I mean, fantasy points per minute-wise, not a huge number. Right now, we've got him projected at 33 for this one. And while it's not an ideal matchup, it gets Utah, obviously, 2 slower-paced teams. But if they do have one weakness, it's the backcourt defense, especially the point guard position. So if there's one guy from Indiana outside of Paul George who's kind of matchup proof that I'd be fine with playing, at mid 6Ks, you're going to get 35 plus minutes out of George Hill. Never going to be a spectacular guy, but I think he makes for a really nice cash game play though.
Yeah, I like him too. I mean, if you're going with a really balanced lineup tonight, I mean, George Hill's the guy. There's only really one option where you're looking at lower than him, so I don't really mind Hill tonight. I know Utah kind of a slower matchup, but Indy's picked up the pace this season, and like you said, point guard's where you want to attack Utah at.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that one cheap guy you were mentioning, a guy that wasn't even available for the first couple games this season, that's Ish Smith. Minimum salary here. As you know, he kind of took over the Nate Robinson role. Nate Robinson now out of town, but if you watched him, he looked disinterested anyway. He just was awful. But 38 minutes against this team first game, 36.9 points on FanDuel. 29 minutes against Portland 2 nights ago. Ended up with almost 25. I mean, if there's a must play in your cash games tonight as far as value wise, I mean, it's probably got to be Ish Smith. He's minimum salary, projected right around 33 minutes, and obviously with Drew Holiday still on minutes limit, and now Nate Robinson out of town, not wasting minutes doing nothing. Ish Smith should be easily locked in at 30 tonight.
Yep, I'm with you there. If I want to double up on the superstars, Ish Smith is the key.
Yeah, maybe even triple up if you're lucky. So
yeah, if you're going that way.
Yeah, it's one of those nights you could do that if you really want to. All right, next up we're going to talk about shooting guard. CJ McCollum, $6,000, got an $800 bump after that big first game against New Orleans, 47 fantasy points there. Played 33 minutes last night. He did fine. If you were expecting another repeat almost 50-point performance or over 50 on DK, then you were, I guess, disappointed. But at his price, especially on this shorter slate, he's still the guy that you're going to be looking at as really just being locked in to his role there. Should see 30-plus minutes, and the good thing is even when these games are kind of out of hand, he's kind of running the offense there in the last few minutes, even if the game's 15, 20 points. So not really expecting a blowout here necessarily because it is a close spread, 2.5 points, 204-point total. But McCollum, not worried at all about him minutes-wise on the back-to-back. What do you think minutes-wise for him tonight?
Minutes-wise, I'm probably looking, around 33. I'm expecting much of the similar minutes from last night. Not really concerned with the back-to-back there. Just because they don't have many other options off the bench as well, especially, behind McCollum and Lillard there. So not too worried.
Yeah, and a nice value there. I mean, you can obviously go in the minutes tool here, change minutes, 33, maybe sees 35, 36, depending on how close the game is. And he's got a real nice value there as well, cafe value-wise. So that's definitely nice. Another guy that you mentioned that we're looking at here at shooting guard as a value play, that's Langston Galloway from the Knicks. Really cheap. Sub 5K, $4,600 there on FanDuel. And he's played 25 minutes in each of the first two games. So if you lock him into 25 minutes in the minutes tool there, projected for 18 points, which doesn't seem like a lot, but 0.72 fantasy points a minute. I mean, that's more than enough at a fairly weak shooting guard position tonight, especially near minimum salary. So maybe he sees 25 to 28, but you're probably happy with this production through 25 though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Galloway as a nice, cheap play at shooting guard because it's not a great position tonight. There's no real top tiers. Guys I'm really excited about. Mid-value to low value is where I'm looking. And if this game is a blowout, you could maybe tack on a couple extra minutes for Galloway there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it could definitely go that way. And as we know, he's the guy that can score as well. I mean, we saw it last year when he was seeing big minutes. Another guy at shooting guard, and this is obviously a big-time minutes guy, kind of by default while we've got a lot of injuries and uncertainty there. Eric Gordon for the Pelicans. Played 33 minutes in the first game, 41 minutes in the next game. They really just don't have much depth in that backcourt right now, especially now they got rid of Nate Robinson, his dead weight. You've got Drew Holiday on the minutes limit. So if you're looking for a guy that's just going to be locked into 36 to 38 minutes most nights, it's going to be Eric Gordon. He's not an extremely productive fantasy point per minute guy. 0.67 is actually a pretty low number. But at the same time, I mean, if you know you're getting 35 minutes, you got to expect 20 to 25 fantasy points, maybe even a little bit more each night.
Yeah, I'm looking at him. I mean, he's definitely a pretty solid value play as well. And, like I said, there's not much higher than him that I'm really excited about tonight. Maybe Bledsoe in some tournaments, but there's other positions I want to pay up at.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, CJ Miles. Guy got the start the first game, didn't get the start second game, played 36 minutes in the opener, 21 minutes against Memphis next time, scored 18 points in each game. Tough matchup, obviously, against Memphis there. Now they get another tough matchup against Utah. What's your guess here as far as his minutes? Because obviously, nothing official, but you don't expect that he's probably going to start. So maybe we see him right around 25 minutes in this one. What's your take there?
That would be my guess. I mean, you look at the last Memphis game, and Indy came out and played very big. And I expect that to be the case against Utah, who's also a pretty, sizable team as well with Gobert, Favors, and Hayward. They're all pretty lengthy guys. So I expect CJ Miles to come off the bench, and he was still productive. You look at the Toronto game where he had 18 points in 36 minutes. Memphis, he had 18 points in 21 minutes. So, I mean, the guy can put up points when his shot's going. He's shooting the ball well from three right now. He's 8 of 14, so those are solid numbers.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy most of his value is there with the scoring. Obviously, he's not a guy that contributes in a lot of categories, but smaller slate like this, you can get your 25 minutes. It is a slower pace, like we said, so he's not a guy that you're rushing out to play, but not a bad option there either. Another guy that you mentioned here that you like, especially as a cash game option tonight, and originally projected in the minutes tool here at 26 minutes, but if we look at what he's done the first two games, he's been significantly higher than that, 31 and 32 minutes in two games. Al-Farouq Aminu for Portland there. He's a guy that we saw last year was productive on a per minutes basis. Now locked into a little bit bigger of a role there at Portland, obviously with Nicholas Batum gone. So if you project him up, 31 minutes there, his projection jumps up to 25 points there in the minutes tool. And wouldn't be surprised to see him play that type of minutes tonight because there's really just not a whole lot of depth there at the small forward position for Portland.
Yeah, I mean, he's near to double-double almost each game there. Just missed out in the first game, and he's been consistent. This is a guy who, can get some defensive stats to add on to that as well. And like you said, the minutes are going to be there just because, there's really no one else behind these guys. McCollum, Lillard, Aminu there's nobody. I mean, it's all in the front court, if anything. So once again, you're going to see a high volume guy, and for 4,600 on DK and 5,200 on FanDuel, that's pretty solid value, especially on FanDuel where you have the roster too.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the type of night where you're going to want to lock in guys with big minutes at your weaker spots, we're definitely looking at you there, small forward. A couple other guys we want to talk about here at the power forward position. A guy who was very productive in his last game after just a terrible performance in the first game. Played just 11 minutes against Dallas, 5 fouls, really never got it going. Markieff Morris, though, turned it back around last night. 34 minutes against Portland, neared 30 fantasy points. $5,800 is pretty cheap for him, considering this is a guy that we saw last year. He was mid 6Ks, upwards of 7K when he had it going a couple times. So at that price now, obviously he's not splitting any minutes with his brother anymore. Maybe money still, but not minutes. So if you get him right around, we have him projected at 31 right now. Got him projected at 27.28 fantasy points. That right there seems about what you would expect out of Markieff Morris. And we know that he has upside. So if you're not paying up for some guys at this position, it kind of makes sense to pivot down, because right in that price range, he just seems like the best bet, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'm with you there, because, unlike the last few nights, we've had some real value at power forward with guys like Joseph Randle and guys playing in Denver there. But tonight, not so much. I think Markieff Morris is at a pretty solid price. We saw last night him, fill the stat sheet, which he can do at any time, as long as his mind's in the game. I think that's the biggest key, because this guy is a mystery at times. But, for the price and minutes, I think he's a pretty solid play.
Yeah. One more guy here at the power forward position, and this is a guy that we know is never going to play huge minutes, hasn't played huge minutes yet this season. It's just really never going to happen. He's a liability on defense, but he's got a monster usage rate of 39% so far this season. Mo Spates, $3,900. He's played a grand total of 24 minutes so far this season in 2 games, but he's totaled, FanDuel-wise, 38.9 fantasy points. So this is a guy that's a hustle player. You got to love how the guy plays. And obviously with Andrew Bogut out, there's more minutes to go around. Not a guarantee he's going to see more than 15. Really never, ever more than 20 at most. But at his price tag, if you're trying to make some big names fit, multiple 2 or 3 of these guys even, he makes sense as a cheap play, because you're going to get the usage when he's on the court, and he's going to have opportunity. But maybe don't love him as minutes as far as a cash game goes, but I think I'm fine with it on this slate. How about you?
Yeah, I'm with you there. There's really limited options, and we do want to target those West Coast games. So if we are paying up for Cousins and Curry there, we're going to need some value elsewhere, and I don't mind Spates. So.
Yeah, and then one last guy, same team there actually, Festus Ezeli, another guy who's sitting there at minimum salary, and obviously we're talking about Andrew Bogut sitting out once again there. So Festus Ezeli is a guy that, another one of those guys doesn't see huge minutes. We got him projected at 24 right now in the minutes tool. Played 25 last night. He was productive. Never going to be a guy that's going to, put up 40 fantasy points by any means, but 42 minutes in 2 games, and he's got 43 fantasy points on FanDuel. So right around 1 fantasy point per minute there for him so far, 0.93. You got to imagine he's going to see right around 25 minutes tonight. So if you're not paying for Boogie Cousins, Ezeli makes a lot of sense as your punt option there.
Yeah, I like it there.
Yeah, definitely. So I still kind of want to get myself some Boogie Cousins in this game, or in this slate. But either way, Festus though for cheap.
Hey, Cousins said he hates the Clippers. That's a little narrative right there. He hates them. So,
and he played like he hated them. And the best thing about it is, despite it being a back-to-back, I guess we can touch on him here real quick. He only played 28 minutes last night and ended up with over 40 fantasy points. Projected at 33 right now in the minutes tool, which 1.37 fantasy points per minute definitely gives him a huge ceiling. But if you put him up closer to 30, if you put him at 36, for instance, his projection jumps up to almost 50. So don't be surprised to see him play big minutes here. It was a blowout last night. He rested for a lot of the second half. So Boogie Cousins could be in line for another huge game tonight.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to wrap things up for us here. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. We've got lots of other great content for NBA, NFL, and every other sport at dailyfantasycafe.com.